Hi everybody, and welcome again to another episode of the Automated Millionaire channel. This is a broadcast that is going to go out on the different video platforms, or maybe indeed you're just listening in on one of the podcast platforms. At any rate, I welcome you here. I hope you'll find a lot of value. You are in the right place if indeed you are a business owner, or let's say even a business manager, and that you want to make a better result out of your business. So what's the better result? Well, the first and foremost that we kind of go by is making more money out of your efforts. It is not necessary for the sake of making money, but it's because of what the money can represent in what we can accomplish and do elsewhere, or for our lives and for our families or those we care for, or maybe even on a grand scheme for some of the big projects in the world that we have at heart. Money is also, in a sense, the way we keep score on the performance of our efforts, on the performance of business. At least when it comes to business, that is very much how we measure it. It's kind of like the measuring stock of which we can gauge if things are going well, if we're doing the right things. You might as well get compensated really well of your efforts rather than doing the same kind of work or the same amount of work, or even maybe too much work, and getting compensated very poorly. As an entrepreneur, we often see that life gets to be quite a bit of a roller coaster. Sometimes we're up and sometimes we're down. I have been an entrepreneur pretty much my entire life, and I've had my own businesses, and I've been a partner of businesses, and I've been on board of directors of businesses. I run privately held companies, and I run publicly traded companies. So I've been across the boards in all kinds of situations, and that includes some monumental failures, and it includes periods of time when I was really truly struggling, both on a personal income level and what all that entails, and also on a business level. So I've had where businesses are really struggling, I've had to close some businesses and so on, and I've also, thankfully, I've been on the side of the scale where the businesses were really thriving, and I really got compensated to a very high degree. All throughout, I've gained a lot of perspective. I gained a lot of insight, a lot of expertise and so on. And not least in my later years, you might say that I took all my previous years and then I formulated it into much more of a structured system for actually making businesses work on a very much higher level. And so that's what I brought into the world when I became a business consultant later on here in the States. And I got to meet a lot of businesses from a lot of industries and all over the United States and into Canada, and had to deal with businesses of all kinds of industries that I never dealt with before. And the way of going in there and being able to change the business to something much, much grander, much greater results, much more fluidly and smoothly run businesses, and doing so fast, well, I would venture to say that you cannot really do so without a method and without a real true system of going about this. Now, the great thing is that it means that you stay being the tradesman, the expert tradesman or whatever trade you're in, but if you acquire some of this system or some of this method, you can then implement that in your business pretty much regardless of what kind of business you're in. I get it. A lot of my listeners or a lot of my viewers and followers might actually say that, well, my business is different, my business is unique and so on. And I'm not going to say it's not, because your business is unique. We are all unique individuals also and so on. But what I'm saying is that ultimately, the business of business is very universal. It's the same things that goes into the equation pretty much, and the way of looking at it and so on becomes that, you know what, I can help you with the business of business, and then you can stay unique with your trade, your craft, and the skills of your trade. I cannot become, well, I probably could if I wanted to, but I am not an expert pharmacist. I'm not an expert concrete service company. I don't have the expertise of doing a whole slew of very manually required labor. I don't have a high technology insight, so I couldn't probably be of much use in technology sphere. But on this business sphere, I certainly can come to the table and I can help you bring that about. And I can say that with great sense of confidence, not only because of what I've tried and done myself in business and in some smaller business that actually grew very large and moved into several countries and actually eventually went IPO, so went public, became a publicly traded company. But I can also say so because I've helped a lot of companies, typically smaller to medium-sized companies, but they came from all walks of life and all kinds of industries and were located all over the United States. This kind of work took me in person, on site, to 50 of the 52 states here in America and into Canada, numerous locations. And I've helped more than in excess of 100 companies in person, on site. The reason I'm bringing this online and onto podcasts and onto the video channels is for the fact that I saw the great help that I gave all these people, and I saw how it changed their lives. So not just did they make more money and life became easier, but it really changed their lives. And I've been there myself where, like I said, in a struggling position, it's a lot of stress, and it has the negative ripple effect where your relationships get really, in a tight spot and maybe even ends up in a terrible spot, and it may even spill over to employees and their families and so on and so forth. So the ripple effect can be tremendous, very, very tremendous, and it can be of very negative consequences and bring a lot of hardship. The positive side of being an entrepreneur also is that the ripple effect when we do something good and accomplish great results can also be magnanimous, and it can be absolutely exponential, the way we can impact the world or the society or people around us that we care for, and our employees and their families, and extend to the vendors and their families and so on. So the ripple effect are great. And when I went out into the field and were with clients in person, I mean, it was great. It gave me a lot of extra knowledge and a lot of extra connections and a lot of great experiences. And I helped all these people, and it was very, very satisfactory to see and to sense that gratitude that they ended up with, and seeing that, we really made a difference in their lives. However, my big hiccup was that not only was it, maybe a little bit of tough on my life, traveling 5-6 days a week and being away from my small children and my family and my wife and so on. But at the end of the day also, I could only and can only really help one company at a time when I'm out in person at one company. I really can only focus on that one alone. However, when I bring it online, bring the same kind of results, the same kind of insights and expertise and systems and methodology and teachings and tools to the online world, to you through podcasts, through videos, or through my courses and coaching and Zoom calls and that type of thing. Now I can help a lot of people all at the same time. And actually, in fact, what you'll find is, and certainly I've found, is that the group sessions, group coaching calls, for instance, so on, actually brings more value to the table than a typical one-on-one. I get it. A lot of you might be thinking, well, a one-on-one nowadays focuses just on my business and so on. And you are absolutely right. It is. But it also comes, first of all, at a very high monetary price, because if I were to do that today, my price would be quite considerable. Whereas if you get me on a Zoom call with a lot of the other people in a program, in a coaching program, for instance, based on a course and a methodology and a subject, now you all gain from that, and your price of access is of course much reduced because the price of delivering it is much reduced. So you get a huge bargain. Now that's one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is that in group sessions, what I found is that there's a myriad of other people who are having a lot of the same troubles and challenges that you're facing, And sometimes we're either too shy to raise the hand and ask the questions, or sometimes we didn't think of asking the questions, but some of the others do. So in other sense, in other words, what happens is that we oftentimes in group sessions actually get answers to very critical questions that we did not think of asking, but really will help us out knowing the answer to. So therefore, I've decided to bring a lot of this online and onto coaches' programs and courses programs and tools and so on that I all package up for specific topic areas. And so you'll see that my signature program is all about, how to make more money in the business, but also implementing this system so you can continue doing that over and over and over, and actually eventually have a team of people who carry out all the daily operations. So basically you can become true owner, which means also you can truly go and explore other parts of life without having to be that integral part in the daily operation of the business. And you can do so because you now have a system in place and a team in place that actually carries out for you. Myself, part of the reason that I got to be named the Automated Millionaire is in fact that I owned and operated the largest limousine service company in Denmark. I bought it at one point in time back in late 96 and had it in private ownership for about 14 years until that time, such point in time I sold it. And what you would find is that I actually very rarely set foot in the business. So in a physical sense, I only came out there once in a while. There was either to pat somebody on the shoulder or to tackle a big trouble or having an important meeting and so on. If I tally up the hours I've spent in there physically in place of the business, I probably over the entire 14 years spent only about maybe 60 days worth of work days. 60 days in total of 14 years of ownership. And yet again, in my first year alone of ownership, I got the top line, the sales of that company, to actually more than triple. And I got the EBITDA, the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, to increase by an astounding 32-fold. That's right. So I actually got a result in the first year after I bought it compared to the previous owner's result of 32 times higher. Now, I'm not saying this to brag or to boast or anything like that, but what I'm saying is that you can truly run the business at a very, very high level, get the right results and so on, once you have a true system. And back then, I have to say that I didn't even have a system. But today, because of repetition and so on, I have molded much of this, and because of also colleagues that I work with, which I find hold in high esteem and so on, they taught me a system and methodology for doing so, and now it all just makes perfect sense. And it also helped me be in a position where when I come to you in a business, I can actually go in there without knowing pretty much anything about your business, without knowing the industry and so on, and I can bet you $1 that I can, for every dollar you spend with me, make you at least $2 back. Again, today what I'm doing is I'm bringing this online so I can reach and help a lot more people than I could ever hope to do by going out in person on one-on-one, one company, one person to one company at a time basis. So anyways, we are currently in a series here of these episodes of where we're looking at what are the secrets that makes it so that I can do this. What are the secrets that people and some of my colleagues, some of my very, very good colleagues within the realm of business consultancy and business turnaround agents, how are we able to go in and actually change a business from maybe even a struggling, maybe even close to a bankruptcy situation, and turn it around to a path of prosperity and making real good money in just matters of weeks or maybe in matters of a few months? How are we able to do so? And so what I've extracted and from my system and methodology and my courses and so on is like some of all of these secrets that makes it so. And so now we are in the series of these secrets. If you missed the first, I think we are up to about 8 secrets or maybe 12 secrets already or so. So if you want to get those, go back to some of the previous episodes. For now, we're going to continue and explore further. The first secret we're going to tackle in this episode is, and this goes actually for a lot of the best leaders and a lot of the people who gets the best results, and you will find this also mentioned in a lot of the books that you might read on leadership, on success, on business. And it is that you have to be able to act swiftly and decisively. To sum it up very briefly, I would say that most of those business books that I've come across, or any books on leadership and so on, when they have talked about this, they all come to the same conclusion, that the most successful people, they actually act very swiftly. It doesn't mean that they act erratically, it doesn't mean that they make decisions like out of the blue and so on, but they go with a decision very, very fast. And then what they actually also do is that they change the decision very slowly. So they act fast, they decide fast, they are very decisive, they're very swift in the action of that. And then they only change the decision very slowly. So in other words, they have an idea about, based on their experience and their background and their expertise and so on, that this is the route to go. They may come to a conclusion that that's not really right, the right way to go. It may need to have, some sort of pivot, or maybe they actually need to discard it altogether. But they usually arrive at that conclusion rather slowly. And it is because that invariably acting fast and swiftly actually gets jobs done. So one of the secrets is that you gotta act fast and swiftly. As a business turnaround agent, when I come in and I are there to help a business that's truly struggling, it's in the 11th hour, they are just about being declared bankrupt, they have debtors and knocking on the doors, and they have everything almost about to be cut off, the electricity, phones and whatnot. There isn't time to dilly-dally. There isn't time to hope for the best and let's see if we can, tweak it a little bit. No, you have to make big decisions. You have to make fast decisions. You have to make some change of directory. You have to make some changes in what you're doing in the daily basis and how you're going about it. And so that requires that you very quickly identify, here's the real issue, here's the real trouble behind, here's like we spoke about in one of the previous sessions about some of the secrets, is you have to prioritize what you need to tackle first and so on. And now you have to do it swiftly too. So you don't wait till next week, we're going to take care of that. No, you start right now and you get it moving. You'll probably actually even recognize and understand this from a personal point of view. We are all procrastinators. So if you can act swiftly and stick with it and get going and so on, you're probably going to accomplish much, much more. Of course, in the system and methodology that I show you in my programs and so on, you're going to know exactly what to do, what areas you're going to do it in, and how you're going to do it, and how you are going to do it, so that it's actually your team members and all your employees that actually carry out what needs to be carried out. Because at the end of the day, you can't do all of it, but you can be the perfect business leader which makes all of it happen. So the next one that we gotta look at is exactly part of that last comment that I just gave, and that is you gotta establish a management team. Now, most businesses I come into, they already have a natural hierarchy, they already pretty much have a team in place and so on. But if you don't, you definitely have to establish a team. There are a lot of there are a lot of rules surrounding it and how-tos and so on. I'm not gonna get into the depth of that here. If you want deeper into that, I'd suggest that you go onto my website, theautomatedmillionaire.com, and then you look at the Automated Millionaire Business System program and coaching, and then you can get the whole system for that through there. But there are certain ways that you'll find out this is how you go about it, and you can keep, or actually your team members can help you keep finding, as I call it, finding cash in your business. You'll be surprised how much cash is, quote unquote, laying around in your business, either because of unproductivity, because of overlooked opportunities, because of excess wastage and spending, or you name it. It's a bunch of reasons. And that's actually what I love about a business, is that there's never just one knob to turn. There's a myriad of knobs we can turn in a business. The system will help you find out which one gives you the bigger bang for the buck, and which one is a better choice to go about and do first, so that you can just keep on improving the business. But you have to establish that management team. And so if you already have a team, of course, you got to really think about, well, is it the right team? It's about, and again, not to go into too much depth on this episode here, but it's about, making sure it's the right people in the right seat. So it's not so much about, the hierarchy position of the person, but about the abilities and skills and expertise of carrying out what needs to be carried out in the different areas of responsibility that needs to be in place. So in fact, if you're thinking about an organizational chart, you might, instead of thinking of the people, think about the roles that need to be fulfilled, and then it makes it easier for you to see, do I have those roles filled out with the appropriate person? And maybe you'll find that you might need to make some shuffling around and to change things up so you get that into place. Because there are certain roles in a business that has to be fulfilled, and they have to be fulfilled to a very large degree of expertise and also efficiency, and that requires that it is the right person. So maybe you actually have positions where it's the wrong person for that role. It might have seen the natural person of choice because of seniority or friendship or social concerns and so on. But you might actually come to a conclusion that you might have to do some shuffling around, and from a perspective of making things work better for you in the business. That's a topic for something some other time though. But you got to have the management team. The final two secrets I'm going to make known or state here in this episode is something we touched about in the last episode, where we said, well, we got to assess where we are at. We got to assess current situation. And I mentioned it very, very rapidly there, but you got to review what are the resources that we have in place. So again, sometimes it's people, sometimes it's skills, sometimes it's expertise, knowledge, sometimes it's their connections, and sometimes it is, the machinery. We have 10 machines, but 4 are broken, 1 is, inefficient, and so on. It may be how much cash resources do we have, if anything, how much line of credit do we have accessible still, what people skills do we have, and so on. So you've got to assess and review what are the resources, because without that, you cannot find out, how do we make the best out of those resources? You may also come to a conclusion that, we are missing a key resource in here. We may be missing a person who can really be savvy at, maybe it's just welding, and welder expertise at a certain level that is missing to make everything else happen. That would really get the business going in certain areas of the business or so on. The other part of this is you, like I said, you review the resources, but you also review your processes. And we have spoken a little bit about this previously, but I want to highlight it as one of the quote-unquote secrets, is that you got to review your processes. I mentioned in one of the first episodes in this series of the secrets that there was a rubber mold company that were carrying out a lot of steps in a job that they had for their clients. They had these old molds coming in that would have to be resized in terms of how thick they were, because they had some new machine presses or something technical, but in the bottom line was that all these molds, these metal molds, they would have to be milled down to a profile that was less thick. And so they already had done a number of these before I came in there and so on. But as I went through what there was the process that they did it, I kept learning every single time I went over the process again. There was another aha moment where we said, well, is this the smartest way of doing it? Or could we do it in a more efficient manner? For this particular case, as you might never have heard in that episode, or again, if you haven't heard the episode, you can go back and find it. But there was a case of where there were like 56 screws in these rubber molds that would have to be taken out before they can mill it down. And then subsequently they would have to put in the 56 screws back in again, although they would have to be cut first to size, because we now had, like I said, a thinner profile of the molds. What I learned by going over the process over and over and over and reviewing it, I learned something new every day. And so one of the times that we came over it, and that's what I mentioned in the previous episode, is that I found that they actually took out these screws by manual labor. So we basically had a screwdriver and then manually they would take them out. Now you can imagine 56 screws of those and boatloads of these molds that had to go through the process. That's a lot of time. Even if you're very fast and don't run into too many problems, it's going to take quite a while to take out 56 screws. And we calculated out approximately how much it would be and so on. And then we did the same exercise where we say, well, what if we used what seems very natural, a power drill? And we found, of course, that the amount of hours that we would take was much, much less. So not only would it be much less expensive in terms of labor cost, in terms of time spent, but it was also so that all that extra time meant that we could, in the business, in this rubber mold business, could process a lot more of these rubber molds in any given day. In fact, this wasn't the only part that we changed of the whole process. That's a much longer story. But in actual fact, what we ended up with that, where they used to do about one a week, we were now doing, I can't remember, but I think it was like 40 a week or something. The change was so dramatic. And the way we found out was, again, I am no expert in rubber molding. I am no expert in CNC machine. I am very rarely an expert in the highly technical matters or even the manually technical matters of things. But by questioning it and going over it over and over and over, you'll find that, well, there's something off here. There's something that can be done better. So again, that was secret number 4 of this episode. So again, let's do a very quick recap. And the first one is that the best leaders, the ones who have the most success and so on, they act swiftly and decisively. The second secret we talked about is you gotta establish your management team, and if you have a management team, well, you gotta make sure that you recommit what we're doing, how we're doing it, and so on. Now, when you have my system, the Automated Millionaire business system, then you'll have the process and the know-how and the method of how you ensure that your team leaders are actually doing what needs to be done, and so in such a way that you actually have everything that you do on an actionable daily basis actually lines up with the end goal that you set in mind. We spoke in the past episode, we spoke about that end goal and so on. And so now you have the process that actually makes it happen. You also actually have the process that ensures that your team leaders can go and find this cash and can actually map these things out themselves on a continuous basis. Because a business is dynamic and the life happens and so on. So things change over the course of time. And so in other words, what you do really great today may not really be what's going to work well for you tomorrow. I say this a little bit facetiously because probably the time span is a little bit longer, thank God. But you'll keep finding ways of improving the business because the process ensures that you do it. And then it's also that once you find out, okay, we need to do this, the process of how we're doing and the method, the system that I have ensures that things are actually carried out. And then you will actually have, via again the system and the method, you'll have measures that gives you milestone proof. Did we do it? Did we not do it? Are we on line with the goal? Are we in front of the goal maybe? Are we getting a bigger result than we expected, or are we behind? And then that will tell you then what do you need to focus on next? What do you need to make happen in that span? So the management team is critical. And then the final tool was that we review what are our resources. We got to know what resources we have or what we have lack of, and therefore what we need to, have a focus on how we're going to get and strive to get that resource so we can progress in the business. And then of course we're going to look at the processes. The processes, especially production companies, but certainly also any other businesses. Everything is really a process. And if you don't have the process, in a concise manner, that means you have no systems. And if you don't have any systems, then everybody, let's say you have a myriad of people and employed, well, everybody just does whatever they're doing, they're winging it. there's a great reason that Henry Ford, for instance, when he put things into a system and he used the conveyor belt principle and so on, all of a sudden, instead of manufacturers making maybe one car a day, he could now make, I think it was like 1,400 cars in a day. That was, memory serves me correct, that was the comparison from 1 to 1,400 by the whole systematization and putting it into a conveyor belt system. So, ladies and gentlemen, those were the 4 extra secrets. I have more to come. We'll talk about them in future episodes. Meanwhile, I am thankful that you are here. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time and attention. I hope that this will serve you well. Believe me, it has served all my clients really well when we have been out there and teaching them and putting this system in place and so on. Of course, to get really much more hands-on experience of a lot of things and the tools and the instruction how to, you'll probably have to consider getting on board with some of the courses that I have or some of the coaching programs and so on, so you're not left alone. That's the great thing about the coaching programs, is that you don't just get a course, you actually get a weekly access to me to raise the questions that come up in your business or the challenges that you're meeting in your business. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I would love for you to hit a like button on this video or podcast or whatever. I would love for you to subscribe. It definitely helps me and spreading the word so I can help even more people. And I would love for you to maybe share this episode with somebody you think that might benefit from it. And besides that, here's to next time. I'll see you soon, and God bless.